You board a plane. You fasten your seatbelt. You trust everything is under control. But imagine this. You are at 10,000 meters. Suddenly, the nose of the plane tilts downward. The pilots struggle to regain control. But the plane keeps falling. It's not a storm. It's not an engine failure. It's the plane itself, fighting against the pilots. An automatic system no one understood. Hidden software deciding when to live and when to die. 2 planes, 346 lives. A century-old company, crumbling before the world. This is not science fiction. This is the story of Boeing, the aviation giant that lost control of its own skies. For decades, flying on a Boeing plane meant safety. Millions of passengers boarded planes every day, without a second thought, because Boeing wasn't just a company. It was the gold standard of aviation. Founded in 1916, the company helped build the modern airline industry. Its aircraft crossed oceans, connected continents, transported millions of people worldwide. Pilots trusted Boeing. Airlines trusted Boeing. Passengers trusted Boeing. If the plane was a Boeing, people assumed it was safe. But inside the company, something began to change. For years, Boeing dominated commercial aviation. Its biggest rival was the European manufacturer Airbus. The two companies had competed for decades. But in 2010, that competition became dangerous. Airbus announced a new aircraft, the A320 Neo, a more efficient plane, with dramatically lower fuel consumption. Airlines reacted immediately. Orders piled up, hundreds, then thousands. For Boeing, this was a direct threat. Designing a brand new aircraft can take over 10 years and cost tens of billions of dollars. Boeing didn't have that time. Airbus was already winning orders, so Boeing made a critical decision. Modify an existing airplane. The airplane was the Boeing 737, one of the most sold aircraft in history. The new version would be called Boeing 737 MAX. The goal was simple: compete with Airbus and do it fast. But there was a problem. The new engines were larger and heavier. Mounted on the 737, the plane's balance changed. In certain situations, the nose could tilt too far upward. That is extremely dangerous. If the angle gets too high, the plane can stall and lose lift. To fix this, Boeing introduced an automated system, software that intervened when the plane detected a dangerous angle. That system was called MCAS, Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. In theory, just an assist for pilots, a silent safety system. But in reality, that tiny piece of software would become the center of Boeing's greatest crisis. Because what many pilots didn't know was that the system could take control of the aircraft. And what almost no one imagined was that one day, that system would fail. 2 planes, 5 months, 346 lives, and the beginning of the darkest chapter in Boeing's history. On October 29, 2018, a plane from Lion Air took off from Jakarta. It was a nearly new Boeing 737 MAX. There were 189 people on board. Just minutes after takeoff, the pilots began experiencing problems. The aircraft was behaving strangely. The nose suddenly pushed downward as if something was forcing it down. The pilots tried to correct it. They pulled the aircraft back up, but the system forced it down again, over and over again. Flight data later showed something disturbing. An automate system was activating repeatedly. It was MCAS, Software designed to prevent the aircraft from raising its nose too high. But there was a problem. The system was receiving incorrect data from a sensor. It believed the aircraft was in danger, when in reality, it was not. But MCAS didn't know that, so it did exactly what it had been programmed to do: push the nose of the plane downward. The pilots fought for minutes to regain control. They couldn't. The plane crashed into the Java Sea. There were no survivors. All 189 people on board died. At first, the accident was treated as an isolated event, but 5 months later, something happened that would change everything. On March 10th, 2019, a plane from Ethiopian Airlines took off from Addis Ababa. It was also a Boeing T-70 MAX. 6 minutes after takeoff, the aircraft lost control. The behavior was almost identical to the previous crash. The nose of the plane kept forcing downward. The pilots tried to correct it, but the system kept intervening. The plane crashed. 157 people died. 2 accidents. 2 new airplanes. 2 almost identical situations. And a question began spreading around the world. Was there something wrong with the 737 MAX? Investigations soon revealed something disturbing. Many pilots didn't even know the MCAS system existed. It wasn't clearly mentioned in the manuals, and in many cases, pilots had received no specific training about it. The reason was simple. If Boeing required additional simulator training, many airlines might choose the competing aircraft from Airbus instead. So the system was presented as something minor, just an automatic assistance. Nothing pilots needed to worry about. But now, 346 people were dead, and the entire world had begun looking directly at Boeing. After the second crash, global pressure was immediate. Country after country began making a historic decision to ban flights of the Boeing 737 MAX. First came several countries in Asia, then Europe followed, and finally, the Federal Aviation Administration intervened. The aviation regulator of the United States. On March 13, 2019, every 737 MAX in the world was grounded. Something almost unthinkable. One of the best-selling aircraft in history was suddenly grounded worldwide. Investigations soon began revealing something uncomfortable. For years, Boeing had been under enormous pressure. Its European rival, Airbus, was gaining ground. The objective inside Boeing was clear: build airplanes faster, deliver them sooner, and keep costs low. But some engineers had already warned about problems. Internal emails that later surfaced revealed troubling conversations. In one message, an employee wrote something shocking. He said the aircraft had been designed by clouds supervised by monkeys. Meanwhile, the economic impact was devastating. Thousands of flights were cancelled. Hundreds of aircraft were grounded. Airlines around the world demanded answers. Losses for Boeing exceeded $20 billion. But the most serious damage was not financial. It was reputational. For decades, Boeing had been a symbol of engineering excellence. Now, many people began asking the same question. Had the culture inside the company changed? Had financial decisions started to outweigh safety? After nearly 2 years of reviews and redesign, the T-70 MAX returned to the skies. But the crisis was not over. In 2024, another incident shook the aviation industry. A plane from Alaska Airlines lost a fuselage panel. Mid-flight, the aircraft had to make an emergency landing. Fortunately, no one died. But the scare was enormous, and the question appeared again. Had Boeing really learned the lesson? Today, the aviation giant remains one of the most important companies in the world. But trust, once it is broken, is very difficult to rebuild. Because in aviation, there is one simple rule. Mistakes can cost billions, but when it comes to airplanes, mistakes can also cost lives.